We certainly appreciate this opportunity with our partner Syncurity to see their IR workflow on the SOAR platform. We are honored to have the founder and CSO, JP, with us, and also Tom with Worldwide Sales, who's going to take us through first a little bit of understanding of the IRFlow SOAR platform and the integrations, including Cisco Security, and then JP is going to give us an in-depth demonstration, walk through 2 use cases on the power of the platform and also the integration with Cisco Security products through the API. And he'll hand it off to me to dig in a little deeper into AMPR endpoints, ThreatGrid, and Umbrella. And then, of course, we'll have time for Q&A. So at this time, we'll go ahead and hand it over to Tom.
Jessica, thank you so much, and thanks everybody for joining us. Happy Friday. IRFlow is, as Jessica referred to, a SOAR platform, Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response. It's the acronym that Gartner uses for this space, which basically functions as an accelerant to the security operations team, shrink the dwell time, find bad stuff faster, and get it into the queue to fix, whether that's done automatically, as we'll show through some of the integrations to Cisco products today, or if it's done traditionally by creating tickets in a ticketing system. But in the chart you see in front of you, I just want to point out a couple of things in the demo JP is going to do that are worth noting. The first is that in the IRFlow platform, we look at this cycle of taking in curated events from things like SIM or user-submitted phishing email boxes or MSSP, who might be monitoring part or all of your network, such as Cisco ATA, by the way, Advanced Threat Analytics, which is a service that we also integrate to. But we usually take those in, we risk score them, normalize them, and on behalf of the analysts do as much as we can to automate the investigation that they typically need to do to convict or deprecate, right? Escalate to an incident along with one or more other alerts, related alerts, or to close as a false positive or some other reason. And if escalated, then the steps necessary to contain and remediate are taken. And that, as I said, in the demo you'll see today, is done automatically. And increasingly, I think with the power of the APIs and the integrations that we've built with Cisco, companies are feeling more comfortable doing that. But as I said, it's also possible to do that. And I think JP is going to show one example of that, to use a ticketing system. And we track that, of course, bidirectionally to know the status so that we can properly report on the entire process from the events that originally generated the alerts to start with all the way to the close of the incident and all of the reporting, the detailed events that occurred in between. So it's a powerful platform. It's one that I hope you become even more aware of and interested in, and we look forward to following up with you after the demo. So I'm going to pass it on at this point. We got one more thing I wanted to mention. I apologize. And that is the IRFlow integration framework. And one of the things you're going to see through JP's demo is going to be a number of different integrations of Cisco products. And what we have in our integration framework is a series of classes, application classes, if you will, and then within each class there's a number of actions that we can execute to those APIs, obviously with special emphasis on our strategic partner Cisco, which I've highlighted here on this screen. And there's more, as JP reminds me every week, that are being added, both classes and individual API actions. And for those specific Cisco integrations I mentioned, this is our page in the marketplace where you can see the certified integrations that we have and get some more details. But that's really all I wanted to cover. I wanted to get as quickly as possible through this annoying PowerPoint stuff and get to the demo, which is the reason we're all here. So JP, I'm going to hand it off to you.
All right. Thanks, Tom. I'm sharing my screen right now. There we go. All right. So thanks everyone for joining today. Again, my name is JP Bourget. I am the co-founder or one of the founders of Syncurity. And I'm going to start out talking through. We're going to do 2 use cases today. So the first one we're going to go through, and we're going to take a hash that was alerted to us, such as a STIX indicator, or the kind of use case here is we got an example from one of our buddies or from a threat intel service, and we're going to go through and we're going to try to figure out if that alert or that hash is significant or not. And then we're going to do some containment around that. Before I get going with that, I just want to take a few moments to kind of explain how we look at the world and how our platform captures what we would call the incident response workflow. And so we actually split out the incident response workflow into two parts. And so a lot of people would call it alert handling versus an incident handling. And so our triage queue is equal to when I say alert handling. And the idea here is that every alert that comes into the SOC needs enough attention to essentially convict or acquit an alert. So we need to decide as quickly as possible how we're going to proceed once something that is potentially interesting or smells funny or potential risk comes to our attention. And so that's what we have broken out as what we call triage. And then we have incident handling. And the spirit of incident handling is really we have one or more alerts that we've determined are risk to the organization, and they need to be contained and or remediated. And so then we would take one or more alerts and we would actually escalate them into an incident. And so before I actually go into the actual first use case, I just want to point a few things out. So I currently have a bunch of filters on here. So I'm actually going to to turn some of these off, and I'm going to just explore this triage queue for a few moments. So one of the powerful things about our triage queue is we're able to create a lot of different filters, and in many cases we have teams such as MSSPs, or we have large corporate teams that essentially that have lots of different alerts coming in here that they have to go and work. And so what I've just done is I've just turned off all my different filters that I had to kind of like focus on our demo today. But what I want to point out is that all these different alert types that have come in, let's say today on October 19th, are all in this master queue. And we're able to do things such as say, hey, I'm the guy that I'm going to just work phishing alerts today. And so I'm just going to work maybe the phish queue. So if I just go and filter this out by our 3 types of phishing alerts that we have in this system, I can just sit here and just work the phishing queue. We see other use cases such as maybe we're going to work anything that's older than a day, and we want to go back and work backwards towards what's the most current. And so we can all do that in here with different types of filters, and all those filters can get saved. And so if I go ahead and just open one of these randomly, what we do is we actually bring in these alerts, and each alert to us is just a bucket of fields. And that's an important distinction, because a lot of SIEMs, or security information event management tools, can bring in most of the types of security alerts for you and normalize them, but there are some use cases that don't necessarily fit that standard set of normalized fields. And so this is just an example of maybe a proof point alert that came in, and we have all the different information that is important that an organization may have decided they want to put in front of the analyst when they get this particular alert. Okay, so I'm gonna close this, and this part on the bottom is our triage split screen that we call it, where we have a triage checklist, and I'll talk more about that in a second. So I just want to pop over to we kind of have the same functionality all around incidents. So in this case, I have a whole bunch of example of incidents that I was preparing for the demo today, but we can do the same types of filtering. So we can do things like filter by we only want to see open incidents, we only want to see things that are maybe urgent or high priority, and then we can say we might only want to filter on certain specific instance types, as the incident manager. All right, and so I'm going to point out one more thing, and then I'm going to just go through the use case, and I just want to speak a little bit about how we roll with integrations. And the way that we look at the world of integrations is everything's really, there's lots of vendors. A lot of vendors have APIs, and when we look at doing integration, we're really use case driven. And so what we try to do is we try to look at the atomic actions, is what I call them, of what a customer might want to accomplish in order to fulfill a use case. And we're going to demonstrate some of those atomic actions today. And so the way we implement that is we essentially, in our integration framework, as we integrate with a new vendor, so like a few months ago, we went through and did our integration with AMP for endpoints. And what we do is we build a Python class under the hood that essentially wraps that API that exposes the different functionality that we need in order to then go build these atomic actions, such as query AMP to see if a hash has been seen, or query AMP to check out the file trajectory on a hash, or look at the device trajectory across all your endpoints on a hash. And so that might be one atomic action. And so as we go through this, I'll point out what some of those atomic actions are. And I just want to make the point that we look at this as a opportunity to achieve use cases, not necessarily provide the functionality for every single little piece of thing you might be able to do with individual APIs, but we try to build our integrations out based on what our customers and the people that we're talking to in different facets, the types of functionality that they're looking for, from an API in order to do activities such as enrichment, containment, and remediation. And so the other kind of way that we frame this is we really have two types of API integrations. One of them is for alert ingestion, and so you can see in the triage queue right here, there's a set of, we have some proof point alerts, and we can consume emails and do work with that, which is our second use case today. So we have a whole bunch of different products that we can go and actually either pull new alerts from them. So AMP is one of those. We're not demonstrating that one today, but we can go and ask AMP, what new suspicious files have you seen in the environment since we asked last time. The other types of integrations are really focused around either enrichments or doing some sort of action, and so we call those action scripts. So we might go and say, hey, I have a file hash. I want to ask VirusTotal, what do we know about that file hash? On the other hand, I might go to something like a Cisco Umbrella or to my Palo Alto firewall, and I might want to go and actually block a URL or block a hash, and so actually make a change in the environment that's either that either protects us or in some cases might do some remediation. And today we see most of our customers are looking, they're not as ready to do that automated remediation as they are to maybe put a proactive block in against a new known malicious domain. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and change my filters around. I think I have a Cisco filter here. Awesome. So I'm going to start out with this. What we're going to do is we're going to actually take this the Cisco or the 6 indicator, and we're going to run it through a playbook. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to we're going to take a look at what we're going to do first, and then we're going to actually go do it. So as we look at the way that we codify these workflows into our product, again, we split things out into triage or alert handling, and then everything we would do after an alert's convicted. So what you see right here is actually the triage steps that we're about to take to go and interrogate a hash that was shared with us. And so in this case, we're going to do a step that involves, we're going to search ThreatGrid to see if ThreatGrid might already know about that. We're going to search VirusTotal, and then we're also going to see if this hash has been seen in our environment in our Cisco AMP environment. I will not go through every single little step in excruciating detail, but what I will do is I'll show you how we might configure one of these. So here's that query hash one, and so when I build this playbook, we build out individual steps, and we would call it this tasks pane over here on the right. That's kind of a micro playbook, which is, hey, we need to do these 6 things to accomplish this outcome for this part of the playbook. But you can notice that how we'll go and do some configuration, but the key here is that we're actually running our integration action, the ThreatGrid sample search, and this particular one's not getting fired off automatically. But we have the ability to fire it off automatically, make it available as part of our checklist to be fired, or else we can go on the fly, leverage all the different integrations that might be configured on a system, and we can go and we could go and pull that up to pivot our response. So I've shown those different 3 steps, and so once we then go and escalate it, we're then going to show the follow. We're going to go through the following workflow, and what's going to happen is we're going to go and figure out, hey, we're going to decide that this hash is malicious. We're going to go and figure out who our victims might be. That might be 1 host. That might be 200 hosts. Then if we essentially have victims, meaning if they're greater than 0 is an empty value in our platform, we will then go notify the user that, hey, we have a suspicious file on your machine. We're then going to do some quarantine actions, and then we're not actually going to do remediation ourselves, but we're going to kick off some communications and open up a ticket to actually kick off remediation. If we were to get to this point and we don't find any infections on our network, we may then just note that it happened and then go ahead and close the incident. Okay, so I'm going to go back through here, and we're going to go back. We're going to go into this split screen, and this is where we handle our triage. And so what happened here was we essentially went and we got this alert in a few moments ago at 6 after the hour, and we went and actually did a search into ThreatGrid. And what I want to, I'm actually going to drill into 1 or 2 of these just so everyone can see how this goes, how this happens. So we actually got an alert into our product. And this particular alert is called a 6 malware alert. I'm going to go ahead and pick this up as myself, and so that the rest of the team might know I'm working on it. So we got a few fields in here that came in as the STIX indicator, and so the key one that matters is the file hash, but there's a little bit more metadata here. In some cases, you might get a PDF of indicators. You could do things like attach that to this alert if you needed to. So I'm going to go back over to the triage checklist, and so in this case, we're trying to identify or figure out, does this alert deserve to be conflicted or not? And so in this case, we went out to ThreatGrid, and we actually said, hey, we have this hash, or this indicator. Do you have a sample that you've identified that you might know about it? So if I click this I here, you can kind of see all the different things that went down in our product. So we actually went and kicked off this Python script that's in part of our framework, and we actually came back with there's actually all this different information from ThreatGrid. I know it looks a little poor in this screen, but the whole idea here is that we actually went and asked ThreatGrid, hey, do you know this hash? And we were able to pull the significant data out of the response there. And in this case, I could even go as far as exploring, some of the other metadata that came back. In this case, what I've decided matters for this use case is we really want to know what's the threat score, what the hash was, how many times we've seen it, and then I actually have a link here so I can go out to ThreatGrid real quick if I needed to. And so you can, and Jessica's going to talk about this more in a little bit, but you can see how we actually have some examples up in ThreatGrid, and we didn't have to go find them. So the next thing that we did was we actually went and we asked VirusTotal if it knew about this hash. And so in this case, we found out that 55 of the 68 scanners that VirusTotal monitors today already actually detect this. So, and then we also build a link out to VirusTotal. So I'll go out on a limb and say most people on this call have seen VirusTotal before, but what's cool here is I can actually drill down and get some extra detail if I needed to from VirusTotal, or investigate a little further. And then finally, we went out and created our Cisco AMP environment, and it turns out that we actually have one host that this hash has been seen on. And again, just like the previous 2 examples, we can actually go in here and we can see that we actually, we have an instance of this file on our network. And again, Jessica will talk about how to drill down on this in a few moments. All right, so I will point out down here, let's see, actually no. So to me, we have enough information that this smells funny. I'm going to choose to convict this alert, and I'm going to actually go and create a new incident and escalate this. So one of the things that I'll point out is we could have configured this in in production to say, hey, if we get a hash from this STIX alert and it has a threat score greater than 95, and there's greater than 0 people have there's greater than 0 instances of it on the network, we could automatically escalate it and never have to spend time actually doing the triage. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to pick an incident type, and where we attach kind of that workflow that we showed earlier is at the incident subtype. So that allows us the flexibility to have multiple different types of playbooks. And once I've selected that, I'm just going to go ahead and click save. I might just wait a moment while the incident goes and creates itself. So a few things I'm going to point out here. We're not going to demonstrate all this functionality today, but I just want to point out a few things. So the first one is that on the left here, we call this our incident workbench, and we have all this different incident metadata around here. In a production environment, we usually set up points in the playbook that might be time to acknowledgement, time to notification, time of containment, remediation, some of those things that a lot of organizations wish to track. We also have this concept of a full history. So if I click into this screen, even though we haven't done a lot of work on this inside the actual incident yet, what we'll see is we have a whole bunch of, well, I guess my intention is to demonstrate kind of the painful detail that if you need to get access to from a timeline perspective, we're able to look at. So what we have here is we have one alert inside this incident at the moment, but this particular alert was new for 13 minutes, so it dwelled for 13 minutes before we then triaged it. We spent about 3 minutes triaging it, and now we have this timer running for the incident. And so we can kind of see all the different activity that's going on and time sense of when it happened. And as we scroll down this report, we get all the painful details. So if there's time at the end, I'll revisit that to kind of show how that evolves. So you notice how we now this is the file hash that we pulled in from the alert. And notice at the bottom here, this particular example just has one alert, but in a phishing use case or in some use cases, we could have a phish that we're responding to that we actually have 35 alerts from 35 different users that we might associate with this incident that we would go and remediate. So in production, most times we would actually allow this Cisco AMP find victim script or action to go fire automatically. But for sake of the demo, I want to just go ahead and fire it off manually in this case. And so what we're doing is we're going to go ask Cisco AMP if we've actually seen this, or we're going to go and get that victim list. And so in this case, we're actually running the same script that we ran back on during triage, but this provides me the ability to feed some other information into some of these other actions. So what happened here is based on that conditional, where let's see. What we call this conditional, it got to this point in the workflow, and because the answer was yes, it then populated these other actions, or I'm sorry, tasks into the environment. So if I click on this, again, we got really similar results to what we got back on the triage page. We also then, hold on, let me see if I can share one more app over here. Let's see. So notice that I actually got a couple emails in here. I'm going to point these out in a moment, but we've done a little bit of work based on that workflow. So I'll kind of point out where those were fired, but just to show you that, hey, those came in. So we actually got an action once we've determined that we have a victim. We then go and notify each user based on their machine name, and let's say maybe it's the last logged in user, or depending on what works in different environments. We went and notified them, hey, we actually, we found some malware on your machine, and we're doing some containment. And so when we get to this actual containment phase, what we actually went out and did was we went out and quarantined this host in AMP, and we added it to the protect group. And what I'll point out real quick is that, well, this next step is actually redundant because the score in threat grid was actually greater than 95 or 95 or greater. In some cases, it may be less, and so we actually want to also go block that hash in Cisco AMP. And then we also went and blocked the hash in McAfee Threat Intelligence Exchange. So I'm just going to go real quick. I'm going to go real quick and just point out that we actually did block this over in Threat Intelligence Exchange, and we gave it right here. We gave it we went and blocked this hash over here, and then I'll let Jessica. Actually, no. I will go and show it up in AMP real quick too. So this hash, and just to point out this hash, it's the B0. B0, B90. And so let's see. Oh, here it is. So it's already up here. So so you can see how this actual this hash is blacklisted in our entire environment. So essentially, something we see quite often. The reason why we're also showing the McAfee Threat Intelligence changes, we see a lot of environments where servers might have one antivirus solution or endpoint solution, hosts might have a different one, or different organizations have multiple solutions due to acquisitions and different types of things. So in one fell swoop, we were able to block this in a couple different products. So the last step here is we actually went and set a user notification that we did some remediation on the product, and then we actually also created a Jira ticket. So if I go over here to my Jira instance and I refresh it, you'll see that we went and created a Jira ticket over here about 3 minutes ago, saying, hey, we need to actually go and image this host because we know that they've done some activity with a malicious file. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pass the ball back to Jessica, and she'll talk a little bit about this hash and some of the things that you can do to do some deeper analysis in the different Cisco tools that we've taken advantage of so far.
Thank you, JP. That was an excellent demonstration. We really appreciate our partnership and how smooth it works with the flow, with the APIs. And to pick up where he left off, he was able to show how you could search for that hash value and for endpoints. And from here, you can dig in a little bit deeper into the events and actually see what were the events that occurred on the endpoint, including we see here this detection that occurred and where it was. And one of the things that we'll do if it is something that is never seen before, so there's something in for endpoints called low prevalence, so that if it only shows up on 1 to 10 machines in your environment, then the executable will automatically be sent to ThreatGrid for dynamic malware analysis. And what this does is help with that automated response. And often is with an infection, it's something that is it comes into one or a few machines, whether it's through email or someone download a link or an infected USB drive or whatever the vector was, and then it starts to propagate from there. So with that automation, then it helps you respond much faster. So some things that you can do from this is also go to that file trajectory where JP has shown you, and I'll go there, and then also you can go and see the report in ThreatGrid. This came back with that threat score of 100, and because of that, it created a new detection event automatically, and anything as JP talked about of 95 or above will automatically be put into that quarantine and remediation, but you could do that manual blocking as well. So going to that file trajectory, we're able to see what happened with the infection, the different events that occurred here, how it was created by exploder, as some people call it, and then we see the execution that occurred, and then some of the communication that happens as well. And you're able to go back in time and see what happened up to 30 days, and then you can see how it's moved into a temporary state, and then, of course, some other things like this of any communication that occurred or if there's a dropping a child or if there's any other activity there. So this really helps you in understanding more what exactly happened on the endpoint to get into that greater threat intelligence understanding. As you saw the demonstration with security by JP, that high-level automation to take action, it just flows really nice and automated, and that's the point of it, but you can dig in a little bit deeper should you need to. The other thing that we talked about was this report, so you can click on that and dig into the analysis report of ThreatGrid, and we can see things like it opens up the Onion router, the Tor connection, and how it went and deleted the shadow copy. This is something that we've seen that ransomware does, is to go and take out the restore points so you can't roll back to a prior state. And we have not found any legitimate reason for command line execution of VSS admin delete all shadow copies. And so that's automatically puts it to this higher level of severity and confidence. Some other things that you can do is we have a plugin. I'll post this into the chat window as well after I hand over to JP, which allows you to pivot if you're using the platforms of Chrome, or we also have it for Edge and Mozilla to go and do searches. So in this case, look in ThreatGrid. And what that allows me to do is go to the full ThreatGrid report for that, which you could dig into a little bit more detail. And I'll walk you through this with our next use case that we have reading a ThreatGrid report. So with that, I'll turn the time over back to JP for our next use case.
Thanks, Jessica. So while I'm sharing my screen again, I just see two questions I can address real quickly. The first one is, does it integrate through PSGrid? And so the answer to that is we do integrate through PSGrid, and we're in the process of getting that integration certified. So we'll have more information available up on the Cisco partner site that's showing on the screen right now, probably before the middle of November, before Thanksgiving. And then, so hopefully that answers that question. And the use case there is really to be able to either to kick a user or kick a MAC address or a host off of a switch port that's performing malicious activity. And then there's one more part of the use case that's escaping my mind at the moment, but that was the main one. And then for the second question, which is, can you quarantine the same hash on multiple hosts at the same time? And will the system allow for retroactive workflows for hashes already seen in quarantine? So the first half of that is yes, we can quarantine multiple hosts at the same time. The particular example that I'm demonstrating really just had one infected host, but that's really an N+1 use case where if we were to find 30 machines that had that, we could add all those machines to a quarantine group at the same time, or else block that hash across the environment all at once. So when we do blacklist that hash, it essentially blocks it across the entire AMP environment. And as far as retroactive workflows, you could create in our products the ability to essentially input a hash into a playbook that then went and could go and fire and see if we've seen that in the past, and if so, then either identify the host where we've seen that, or else kick in some containment or protection based on the outcome of those searches. So if after I give the second half, if anybody needs some clarification on that, happy to provide that. All right, so my screen share is on its way up right now. Okay, great. So this second use case is a little simpler, where essentially what we've done is we are taking a example fish, and I'm about to bring one more application. Give me 1 second. I'll bring up Outlook real quick. And so I have this example. Let's see, I have this example fish right here, and this fish actually has 2 malicious links. And sorry about that. Has 2 malicious links. And what we're going to do is we're going to essentially bring this fish or this email into our product. We're going to pull some useful data out of this email, and then we're going to try to figure out if these links might be bad or not, and if so, we're going to see what we can do to protect the environment from them. So I've already actually forwarded this email into IRFlow, and what's happened is we've actually brought this particular email in. You can see I have the Baby Shark newsletter, and we've done a little bit of activity on it here. So we've gone ahead and we've actually parsed out a bunch of the different headers, and this is all customizable. We can pretty much pull any header out you would ever want, but for this use case, the ones that I really care about is maybe who it's from, who sent it, and then I want to know what URLs is on the email. So I could actually explode this out, and you can see how we're actually capturing a lot more data than we're presenting in the alert at the top level, but as an analyst, I'm able to drill down. So if I go back over here, what you can see here is I actually went and did a whole set of other work. And so I actually we got the first link that was here. So this is this one, this tmweb.ru port 80, along with a JPEG here. We went and grabbed a hash of that file. And when we go and, so we then went and said, hey ThreatGrid, what do you know about this hash? Turns out it's another sample that actually gives the 95 back. And this one's a little more interesting because this is actually, how do I put it? This was something that a parent sample inside ThreatGrid actually went and pulled down as part of its execution, which Jessica will kind of talk about that in a minute. And then finally, we went and we asked AMP to say, hey, have you seen this in the environment? Oh, sorry, I clicked the wrong button. Have you seen this in the environment? And so it turns out in this case, we haven't seen it in the environment. So we don't have any remediation to do, but we want to make sure that we're actually not, that we actually do not need to, we want to block this in our environment. So if I go ahead and you notice how this is already actually in an incident. So I'm going to go back into this one. Oh, thank you, Tom. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm back on the right alert. Okay, so I'm actually going to go and escalate this particular alert so that we can go and contain it and block it in our environment. So if there's a couple different ways I can do this. I'm just going to click right-click here and escalate to incident. I'm gonna pick this up again first, so that the rest of the team knows I'm working it. I'm going to go and escalate it to an incident. And so in this case, I'm going to go do a malware IOC response, and I'm going to do a link IOC. We're going to then go and save that. And I'm pretty sure that this one is going to fire right away. I think that's how I have it configured. So by the time we get in there and start looking around, some of the work's already going to be done. Yeah, so in this case, essentially, you can see how we actually went into Cisco Umbrella in this case, so we actually blocked this domain across the organization, and then we blocked the hash in Cisco AMP. And in this case, you can see that it was actually already blocked. So we went and attempted to do a block, and what's cool about the Cisco AMP API is if it's not going to fail, but it's going to say, hey, thanks, we got your block request. We've already blocked it for you, or it's already blocked in the system, and it lets you know that. And so what we do is we let the team know that actually it was already blocked in Cisco AMP. So I want to kick over to Umbrella for a second, and oh, hold on, wrong account. Log out of this. There we go. And I want to go into our integration here. I just want to point out that that's now that will now be blocked inside. Let's see, I think it's under here. Nope.
JP, if you like, I actually have that queued up on my site, and I can show that.
Oh, great. Okay.
If you'd like.
Yeah, I think I must have logged into the wrong account. So let me just point. Yep. Let me just put
Partnership.
No problem. Let me just point out one more thing here. So back to the actual incident here. So we then have a step that then notified. In this case, we notified the admins that hey, we went and we blocked and hashed, and then our work here is done. So I will stop sharing for a moment, and I'll let Jessica show that up.
Hey, thanks. Really appreciate that, JP. It's really exciting to see how it all flows together. My mission at Cisco is this partner ecosystem, and we're really committed to efficacy, so there's good data for the threat intelligence, also for integrations and with the API, and having this partnership with security is a really important part of that. And of course, also scalability, so we can support the large scale. And this is the sample that JP had shown us. And some of the things that really highlight to us and why it came out with a score of 95 for the immediate action is the fact that it downloaded an executable with a JPEG image, but actually wasn't executable. And so that's highlighted right off the bat. That's something that's very malicious and gets that threat score, that 95. Some other things that we saw is that it communicates out here. So a JPEG is actually executable, and it communicates out to that domain that we were able to see within Umbrella. Some other things that it does as well is opens up that, we see the Tor to communicate, and some of the, we see the opening port that was open. Some of the things that you can dig into with ThreatGrid is, of course, with indicators. We also have the HTTP traffic, and you can see those streams, those GET and POST commands. That can be really helpful in it, as well as the DNS traffic that was talked about, and the TCP IP streams and any artifacts that go along with those. We'll also show you all the processes and those parent-child relationships that occurred. We have a process tree that, this is a report that allows you to go and see those relationships and to see changes to the registry, changes to the file system, and other things that occurred with visually with the sample. That here's a sample, and then we can see those different things that occurred. We also have something that helps you visualize all of the mutexes, which is where in process that it was assigned, and also the file activity and the registry information. So you can really dig in deeper if you need to. The way that ThreatGrid's set up is, though, it's very easy for, going back to the main report, it's very easy for the Tier 1 analyst to take a look at that threat score and those behavioral indicators and make a decision, but then you can dig in deeper should you need to, including into the artifacts. So we could jump immediately to artifact number 47 if we wanted to, and that is that JPEG that actually is an executable. And we can see that there was some static analysis done for that. And you have the ability to also to download that if you need to, and put it into SoftEyes or IDA Pro, or to submit it back into ThreatGrid. You can also see the changes to the registry, the changes to the file system activity as well. You could resubmit the sample if you wanted to go interact with it live in what we call Glovebox. You can also download the sample itself within a protected zip file format. This report in HTML, this report in JSON. You can pull down the full PCAP for all the command and control communication that occurred as we went out to that domain. The JSON for the process tree, and also the JSON for the timeline. You can also download the video if you'd like to. And we also have the ability, you could watch the video with the interaction. Sometimes there will be pop-ups that you'll want to go interact with. By default, when you submit a sample, it'll be the random cursor movements. And there's other playbooks that you can submit as well. And of course, you could go interact with it in that live environment. Also, when you submit a sample, it was submitted through security with the API, but you can do manual submissions as well. And when you do that, either with the API or manually, you can choose the playbooks you'd like to use. You could also choose where you'd like to exit from. We have a saying, detonate your malware on our network instead of yours, and so you can say where you want that communication to come from. You can choose how long you'd like to interact with the sample. If there's a password that you need to share as well, you can determine whether or not to have it private, so it's just viewable by your organization and people in your group and not the community. And then you also can see here all the different file types that are supported. So ThreatGrid is a malware analysis platform for that automated analysis with integrated threat intelligence to make it very easy to understand, and so you can go back and forth between these different sections and, of course, download the report. But what was kind of interesting was discussed is that, and we'll give some more time to JP just to kind of wrap stuff up, but that communication with that .ru, so you have the ability to get additional intelligence if you want to by searching in our different intelligence platforms. You could also click on this and get the ThreatGrid report for it, and this shows that the IP address as well as other related samples and associated URLs and some WHOIS information that's being pulled from Umbrella. With that web plugin that I placed inside of the chat window, you could also pivot over to Umbrella, which is what I promised JP that I would do. And here is that report. So we can see that it's on the block list. Thank you to our partners in security to do that. Through the API, we can see the DNS queries globally, associated samples, and other threat intelligence information. So I'm going to give it back to JP to just kind of wrap up the workflow, and then we'll go into some additional Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. So if you just stay in Umbrella for 1 second, well, no worries.
No worries, I'm going right back into it.
Yeah. So one of the things that Umbrella allows its partners to do is it allows us to essentially create a custom integration, and so we're able to have a global blacklist that we can essentially submit domains to. And so when we fired that action off in the demo previously, like 5 minutes ago, we actually added to that particular list. And Jessica, to speak a little bit back to what you were showing around ThreatGrid, one of the cool things that we do with the with your API is we actually we didn't for this particular demo, we didn't actually upload a file to ThreatGrid, but we absolutely have the ability to update a sample to ThreatGrid, and not only just upload the sample, but we allow you to select the VM that you might want to run. So like, do you want to run it on Win 10 or Windows 7 or something else? And then you can also pull down essentially just about all of the metadata that Jessica showed you. So you could essentially go and download the video. You could download the JSON report back into Airflow. In some cases, we have a customer who actually, when they get a hash and ThreatGrid's already seen it, sometimes they want to actually download the sample and then send it to another sandbox just to get a second opinion. So all those different downloads right there. There's definitely scenarios where we'll actually enable our customers to essentially pull that PCAP and maybe do some queries based on what we found in that PCAP, or pull down the original sample and send it elsewhere. And the other thing I'll throw up. So somebody just asked in chat, we can set it to private when you submit, so you can essentially set it to either public or private. When we usually configure it in production with the customer, we default to private, so the analyst has to actually check a box or change a dropdown in order to make it public. So that's really what I wanted to add, Jessica, just kind of some of the flexibility around how we're able to integrate and provide some options. And one of the things we see a lot is like, there's kind of the commodity malware use case that comes in, and you're going to do most of that automated. But as soon as you get something that's a little bit off the beaten path, you want to have some flexibility around how you might upload it. Is it private? Maybe you're a Windows 10 shop, so you want to, or maybe you're seated on Windows 7 machines, so you want to run it there. And the last thing I'll point out is that we also support, if you have ThreatGrid on-prem, we also support connecting to those APIs too, and that's all just part of our standard configuration. And so before we kick into Q&A, I do have an answer with some more detail around our PX Grid ICE integration. So what we'll be releasing later this year with PX Grid is we'll be able to through the message bus essentially enable ICE to bounce or shut down a switch port based on a no MAC address, as well as send a policy update to a host. So hopefully that answers the question that was out there. Back to you, folks.
That's so great. And also, head under the help, if you click on the question mark at any time, there's a how to use ThreatGrid, as well as the API documentation that our partners at Security utilize to do this. And that particular sample we saw, because it downloaded an executable, even though it was masked as a JPEG, that would be inside of our threat intelligence feeds as well. That was some of the other questions that we saw about how things that are marked private will not be included within these feeds here, but those that are marked as public would be included, and you can do additional enrichment into that. So thank you so much. We'll just go ahead and advance the slides. And so we have our partners over at Security have developed the marketplace page, and there's the short URL to it, which is also in your chat window. And there's how you can reach out and get information from Security, including getting a demonstration. Do you have anything else you want to add about how someone could get this in their environment to test it out, Tom or JP?
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Yeah, so we're happy to anybody who reaches out. We can not only just show the different Cisco integrations, but we're always really interested in kind of the different security stacks that different organizations might run, and we're able to demonstrate those kind of that different stack of integrations that we have that might align with your environment. And we're always really interested in understanding the use cases that folks are trying to either get done faster or contain faster, or really just codify the process of how they're handling that their different SOC use cases, and so that they can capture how they're doing it, actually like handling alerts and responding to them when they are risks to the organization. So again, info@syncurity.net will come to Tom and myself, and we'll reach back to you. And as far as trying it out, we usually do POC type activities with an Amazon environment that we can get you up and running really quickly. Tom, you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I'm great, JP. That's fine. I think either contact us directly, as you just said, and as Jessica mentioned, or through your Cisco security team as well. So greatly appreciate the time, and of course all the work that you did, and Jessica too, and Mike Auger, who's not here because of a family emergency, but we certainly appreciate all his work and preparation for this as well.
I certainly do. Michael is part of my team and certified this integration, and he also has the GitHub repositories that are out there. And we certainly wish him and his family the best. Just one question just before we wrap up is, we've done a lot in the technical demo and hands-on, but what do you gentlemen see as some of the challenges or the future for the SOAR and orchestration? What are you looking at for 2019, not to like feature-wise, but just some of the challenges that you want to address? As things just get more data and there's less qualified people and there's more integrations and...
Yeah, so this is JP. So we really look at this as SOC operations and incident response. We kind of characterize it as it's a people and a process problem that technology can help force multiply or speed up. And so we find that as we work with our customers and prospects, that actually trying to understand or help them understand the most effective way to essentially go not just from like what they're doing today to full automation. Like it's more of a journey to essentially find a few use cases, get those implemented, get the low-hanging fruit automated, and what that means to me is really find out like what's the tedious things that an analyst shouldn't be doing, like DNS lookups or threat grid queries, but also look for where we have the most work that can remove the most risk. So a lot of times something that won't make initial sense, it might not jump out at you as a thing to automate initially, but by spending a couple weeks working through a use case and writing some code or implementing the integration to go be able to mitigate a risk within 5 minutes instead of the 5 hours it used to take. Those are the types of things that we're getting our customers and prospects are asking us to go down those paths to help them to help them accomplish. And so I guess in summary, it's not just a one size fits all. It's kind of every enterprise is their own little snowflake. Everyone has a different technology stack, a different security stack, and so it's really about how do we help them facilitate their process in a system of record, and then how do we, on top of that, go down the journey of finding opportunities to automate and orchestrate, and as they grow in their use of the platform, obviously the value just increases over time. So I'll let Tom add anything if you'd like to.
Yeah, I would just say I think the things we see, Jessica, are an expansion of where our customers and prospects want to take the platform. The beauty of its extensibility and the integration framework we talked about earlier is that we've seen customers now branch out to some core IT use cases. There's a demo link that we have available, and I can share it to you to share in the chat window that shows a patch management use case where we're able to find situations where we have risky vulnerabilities that we may need to patch out of band, in order to, close that security gap window. So I think that's, an area where you'll see some increase in where we and our customers are taking. I think there's some other areas too, including the merging of physical and cybersecurity. I mean, sounds simple, but something as important as, correlating, logins to a server to badge swipes in the server room, for example, if there is such a thing. And I think the other thing is just IoT. Increasingly see that, one of the challenges for customers as they try to do some of this remediation and understand things like victims list and who to contact about certain assets is, what happens when these devices are not the traditional devices, or they're medical devices, or they're, SCADA systems. And so I think increasingly what we see is the expansion of both our integration footprint and the partners that we work with to help our customers, more quickly and more accurately identify what's in their environment so that these types of use cases can be executed, as JP said, when you have the appetite for it in the most automated fashion possible.
That's great. Thank you so much, and we appreciate your partnership. We'll turn the time over to Ken just to tell us what's happening next for Demo Fridays.
Thanks, Jessica, and thanks, team. I appreciate you all being on the call today, and thank you for joining us. Our next Demo Friday will be October 26th with Cisco Umbrella. Come learn about our cloud-delivered security platform that leverages DNS as the first line of defense. See the link in the chat window for more details. And when you go, can I get your help? Please tell us how today's session went by filling out the survey that's going to pop up on your exit, and especially tell us any topics you'd like to see in the future. We value your input. Have a good rest of your day, and bye for now.